In the previous segment, I talked a little bit about how Donald Trump wants to put cash in the pockets of every American, help give relief to these small businesses that are impacted by the pandemic, and how many progressives are completely on board with this, yet they're being obstructed by the Democrats. We now have a story from The Nation that the Republicans are now to the left of Democrats. I have no idea what's happening, but boy, it still gets crazier. Ilhan Omar praises Trump's incredible response to coronavirus pandemic. What? Wow. I got to say, man, respect where respect is due. Ilhan Omar basically said that we got to put politics aside because we have a crisis to deal with. I completely agree. We can get back to bickering once we're beyond this crisis. Well, apparently not for the Democrats because they still need to come after Trump. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer both are criticizing and rejecting the proposals from Republicans and progressives to get cash into the pockets of every American. Right now, Bernie Sanders and Trump, the only thing they're disagreeing on is how much to give everybody. Bernie wants to do $2,000. Trump and his people are saying about $1,000, but Trump might actually say, okay, fine, $2,000. Let's read the story and see what Ilhan Omar had to say. But the first thing you need to understand is why she praised him. Li Feng said, Trump suspending mortgage foreclosures, demanding cash payments to Americans, now invoking Defense Production Act to force private firms to produce needed supplies is incredible. Kind of a shell shock for anyone who reported on any economic policies in the Obama years. So this is what Ilhan Omar was praising. Let's see what Fox News has to say. Minnesota Democratic Rep. Ilhan Omar unexpectedly praised Trump's handling of the coronavirus pandemic on Wednesday night, saying it was incredible and the right response in a critical time. Omar, normally a staunch critic of the White House, who herself has repeatedly drawn the president's ire, went on to quote Rep. Ayanna Pressley of Massachusetts, saying, unprecedented times require unprecedented leadership. And Omar added, we are seeing that in our country right now. What? And everything's, we got to be in a simulation. This can't be real life, can it? How can we go years of the squad and the bickering and the squabbling, and all of a sudden now she's referring to Trump's leadership as unprecedented leadership that we are seeing in our country right now? What? Well, she says, quote, finally, we should never let politics get in the way of good policy, Omar concluded. This is a great start and hope others will be part of a united front to push for good policies that will help us work through the economic anxiety the country is feeling right now. You know what, man? Credit where credit is due. My respect to Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, giving praise to the efforts to make this go away, to make this problem, to make things get better for most Americans. If you've got issues with them, and boy, have I heavily criticized them and talked about a lot of the financial stuff, campaign finance violations, we can put that aside for now. For now. Because what needs to happen is we need to pull through on this coronavirus crisis. And that means, like Joe Scarborough said, we need to do what we can to support the president in this effort. Dana Bash as well. I don't know if you guys caught that. I talked about it quite a bit. MSNBC and CNN praising Trump. That's amazing. Fox News says Omar was responding to a post by The Intercept's Li Feng, who noted, which I read to already, that Trump is doing these things that are kind of incredible. Her praise for the president was matched this week by other Democrats and left of center commentators. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo on Tuesday told reporters his team is on it. They've been responsive. I want to say thank you. CNN's Dana Bash asserted that Trump, his new tone on the coronavirus, made him the kind of leader that people need. On Wednesday, Trump invoked rarely used emergency powers to marshal critical and medical supplies against the coronavirus pandemic. So you may have seen my commentary on this. This is the Defense Production Act, which means that, well, they say this, the government will have more power to steer production by private companies and try to overcome shortages in masks, ventilators, and other supplies. Describing himself as a wartime president fighting an invisible enemy, the president also signed an aid package, which the Senate approved earlier Wednesday, that will guarantee sick leave to workers who fall ill. The Canada-U.S. border, the world's longest border, was effectively closed, save for commerce and essential travel, while the administration pushed its plan to send relief checks to millions of Americans. Trump said he will expand the nation's diagnostic testing capacity and deploy a Navy hospital ship to New York City, which is rapidly becoming an epicenter of the pandemic, and another such ship to the West Coast. And the Housing and Urban Development Department will suspend foreclosures and evictions through April to help the growing number of Americans who face losing jobs and missing rent and mortgage payments. Now, I want to comment on that. What about the business owners? Certainly, some of the landlords can't just go without rent income. But I suppose if mortgages are frozen as well, then perhaps some of those, landlords who might have a mortgage will be okay. But what about just property business? What about businesses that maintain several apartments in areas? They own the buildings outright. I mean, they're going to be hurting from this, and much of the economic relief isn't going to go to them. They're talking about grants. They're talking about loans. I'm not a big fan of just giving someone a loan after they take a major hit. But I'll say this, if I had to place, where the resources should go, bail out the American people, and hopefully that will go back into the businesses. Which brings me, I want to point out a couple things first. Ilhan Omar tweeted these things praising Trump, right? But of course, there are many people who don't care. This person said, Rep. Omar, Trump is not actually doing most of this. You're a U.S. representative. You should know that. Too late. Here's a person who doesn't like her. You punched a one-way ticket to Gitmo already. Jeez. This person says, agreed. But to be fair, we never applauded Obama for being human or for watching out for his fellow Americans. All of a sudden, this corrupt grifter engages in 1, 2, or 3 acts that appear to have no secondary agenda, and we should think he is a great American statesman? Sorry, no. This person said, progressive pressure can force even the most right-wing hacks to bend. And this person then said, in response, really? Pelosi is right now busy with trying to reduce stimulus to $500 per family, make it means tested, and since a while, advocating that the vaccine should be affordable and treatment accessible. There doesn't seem to be any pressure on Trump from that side. So let me just point out, when someone does something right, you praise them for it. You heard me. I just gave credit to Ayanna Pressley and Ilhan Omar. I mean it sincerely. There are some people who just refuse to let it go. They only exist to fight, to obstruct, and to be angry. Trump did the right thing. Congratulations, Trump. Good job. If you continue to praise him, guess what? He'll continue to do the right thing. The same is true for most people, not everybody. Which brings me now to the next portion. Right now, congressional Dems are to the right of the GOP. The party's leadership is failing the test posed by the coronavirus. This is The Nation, a progressive, this is a progressive newspaper. Here's what they say. The coronavirus crisis has helped popularize an essential truth. There are no libertarians in a pandemic. The rapid spread of COVID-19 is already ripping apart both America's fragile healthcare system and its economy. The stock market crash is merely the first symptom of what will soon be a system-wide crisis, one that could rival not just '08, but also 1929. A vaccine could be 18 to 24 months off. If so, we're likely to see not a single global outbreak, but a series of waves, as with the Spanish flu at the end of World War I. That would keep the economy sputtering for months. In reaction to the pandemic, even very conservative politicians are embracing sweeping responses. In the Senate, Mitt Romney has called for the government to write a $1,000 check for every American, while Tom Cotton, perhaps Trump's most rabid supporter in the chamber, tweeted about the stimulus deal that Speaker Nancy Pelosi negotiated with Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin. The House relief bill doesn't go far enough and fast enough, Cotton called for stipends to affected workers and their families so they can buy food and pay the bills during this crisis, plus send help to small and mid-sized businesses to help them weather the storm. Romney and Cotton are thinking more imaginatively and on a larger scale than the congressional leadership of the Democratic Party. The Pelosi bill is a step in the right direction, offering universal coronavirus testing, food assistance, and extended sick leave for some workers. But because she caved into the House Republicans' demands, the sick leave measures are far more limited than they should be. Carve-outs to protect small and large businesses means that upwards of 80% of American workers wouldn't be covered by the measure. Congressional Democrats have to be much bolder. The European social democracies show just how much can be done. Denmark has reached a deal between unions and large employers to stop layoffs, with the government covering up to 75% of wages. Norway has promised to pay the self-employed 80% of their pre-crisis earnings for the duration of the pandemic. The best response to this crisis is a robust social democracy. Sensible measures would include an emergency universal basic income with job guarantees, low interest loans to big and small businesses alike, pressure on banks to suspend mortgage payments for the duration, abandon evictions, and nationalization of factories to produce medical equipment and medicine. Now, I'm going to stop them right there. They're going a little bit too far with this one. But the main point we can highlight is that It seems the Republicans recognize if there's a good idea and it's a drastic time with a call for drastic measures, then it must be done. What we're seeing now, as I mentioned earlier in the previous segment, is the Democrats don't actually care about what's going to get the job done. They care about just maintaining this air of, their anti-Trump position. If Trump proposes it, it must be wrong. Now we can see how even the progressives are pointing this out. Dare I say this is good evidence to show that Trump has been acting in good faith this whole time? The assumption that everything he does is some political agenda or some crony thing to benefit him is patently absurd. It's been said often, but I think it's fair to say the dude was a billionaire, had no reason to make any sacrifices to be president. And it's shocking to me that people have talked to me saying, no, Trump knew his business was in danger, so he became, what are you talking about? I kid you not, people have told me this, that he knew his business was in trouble, he was losing money, so his only option was to run for president. I'm like, that makes no sense, but I swear people have said this. Are you kidding? The only option he had? The dude's still a billionaire no matter what his business was doing. He could go to Mar-a-Lago for the rest of his life and sit around sipping on pina coladas. He ran for president because he genuinely thought he was going to do a good job. And I gotta be honest. We look at the past several years, solid market gains. And that's coming from, that was a quote from a BuzzFeed article saying, I think it was BuzzFeed, Trump delivered solid market gains for years. And now we are being hit with a major crisis that is not his fault. Now, some people are upset he didn't react fast enough. Nah, not reacting fast enough is very different from being at fault. Now we're seeing Ilhan Omar. We're seeing progressives praise Donald Trump as well as Trump supporters, which says to me, I gotta be fair, man. If Ilhan Omar is going to come out and say, good job, Trump, of course, what do you suppose? Come on. The people who are still dragging this guy are full of it. Absolutely full of it. And they want to be. They just need their tribal lines. It's what they're all about. I couldn't imagine my existence being defined by just hating Trump, but the people exist. And for a while, I would assume Ilhan Omar and Ayanna Pressley would be in that same boat. But they're willing to come out and support the president for doing a good job. Guess what? Donald Trump is doing a good job. That's it. I don't know if maybe someone could do better. Maybe you can make those arguments. But how could any reasonable person deny it now when we are seeing these major relief efforts and we are seeing a global pandemic affecting everyone? Almost every country on the planet is trying to figure out how to deal with this. And Trump is doing it in a way that's actually brought together his base and progressives. He's even got this is amazing. Andrew Yang has spoken with Trump officials about a plan to directly give Americans cash to counter the coronavirus slump. I said, people often ask me what it would take to vote for Trump. And the first thing I want to say is that I'm a fairly ambivalent person, and I'm not super excited about voting for anybody for a lot of reasons. I'm very critical of Trump and the previous presidents on their foreign policy, while recognizing the nuance of the situation and not knowing a whole lot about I don't have access to classified information, so I can only make assumptions based on what I know, which limits my abilities. But I did say, I'll tell you what, man. If he appointed Tulsi Gabbard to like a national security position and Andrew Yang to an economic advisor position, I'd probably walk right in and be like, all right, I guess here we go. Because that's me recognizing I'm going to get in a couple people I really like. Now, I gotta add, Tulsi Gabbard has just dropped out of the race and endorsed Joe Biden. Barf. I don't like Biden. And I'm not enthused that she endorsed him. That seems terrible. But it's her integrity. Tulsi Gabbard said a long time ago that she would absolutely stand behind whoever the Democrats chose to be the nominee. And as much as I think it is a lie that Joe Biden can do the job of the president of the United States, I can at least respect she's standing by what she said. She was smeared all day, every single day. They were claiming she was going to run a third-party spoiler campaign. She dropped out and said, we got a crisis. The National Guard's going to be activated. I'm putting my weight behind Joe Biden to give him my support, like she said she would. I can't really drag her for that, but I really just don't like, Joe Biden as a whole. I think we're going to pull through this one. And I think what we're seeing now with Yang coming into giving advice, Yang's a smart guy. I think the UBI's got serious limitations, needs to be talked about. But if Trump is actually getting the progressives to rally behind him and we pull through this one, even if we don't, all that matters right now is that people think Trump is doing the right thing. So if we don't make it through this one in one piece, I'm not saying the country would collapse or anything like that. I'm saying we go on an extended period of recession and pain. I think you're still going to see people supporting the president. I'd like to wait and see how things play out. But I have said this several times in the past several months. So to all the people who are still pretending like I'm on board with Democrats, that's just not the case. And it hasn't been for a long time. I have said numerous times, it gets easier every day to say that you will support the president or you will vote for him. I don't vote based on who I dislike. And I don't vote for someone who I don't, for the most part, agree with, which means, guess what? Yeah, I didn't vote for the past several times. I was a big fan of Bernie. He didn't win the primary. I didn't vote in the primary, and I didn't vote in 2016. If Donald Trump takes some, serious measures, we get through this, I have no problem saying that he has encouraged me, at least, to be nearly, I say nearly. I'm not someone who's a fan of standing behind someone for everything they do. And there are many things I am critical of the president for. But at this point, who are we supposed to vote for? If Trump is doing a good job, and even Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, progressives, Andrew Yang, and others are praising what's happening right now, MSNBC and CNN, then I think it would be a lie. Anybody who's claiming that they wouldn't at least consider voting for Trump at this point for his reelection is lying to you. That's insane. The dude's doing a good job objectively, and everyone can see it. I'll tell you what. Trump supporters, if you're listening, what you got to understand about Trump's character is that people find him to be gross. I don't think that's a good reason to not want to support someone who can do the job, but it is a reality for a lot of people. These people aren't necessarily, I disagree with them on that regard, but it is a huge factor. Andrew Yang speaking with Trump officials really, really excites me. I'm really excited. Andrew Yang is one of the best people who has run for the Democratic Party in a long time. He has a huge list of comprehensive policy plans. He's explained them all. He's talked about the importance of nuclear energy. He's repeatedly told Democrats, stop pretending like Trump is the cause of all your problems. And I'm like, yes, thank you. Now, the UBI thing has got its limitations, and I'm not, I think he's described it in a way that warmed me up a little bit, but I'm still pretty much opposed to the UBI thing for a lot of reasons. What we're dealing with now, well, many people are saying UBI is only kinda, but not really. It's an emergency stimulus, but it does fall in line, and it would be an interesting experiment to see how this plays out. People want to work. People can't work. This will give us a lot of data on whether or not a UBI could function properly, what the results would be. But let's be real. The results will likely be inflation in the months to come. If we do get through this, we will likely see inflation based on the amount of money we're pumping into the system. That's just how it works. We're borrowing from ourselves in the future. So I'll leave it at this. I want to reiterate just one last time. If someone comes to you right now and says there's no reason they would ever consider supporting the president, in my opinion, they're lying to you. They're lying to themselves. They're just saying what they think they need to say to fit in. I'll be completely honest with all of you. I wasn't a big fan of President Trump in 2016, barely a fan of him for the most part. But you got to recognize he was right about China, and that's a huge deal. If the Afghanistan peace deal works, he'll get a tremendous amount of credit for it. But I think even trying was also a really, really big deal. At this point, I think we're seeing that Trump, while he's not perfect by any means, he has done a really good job in a lot of ways. And now with the coronavirus and the praise he's receiving, I think it's fair to say that even his staunchest critics and those who don't like him need to recognize there is a good reason to reelect this guy. I'm not saying I'm committed, and we'll see how things play out. Trump's got a crisis on his hands. And I'm not someone who's just going to sit here and be like, yes, woohoo, I'm going to, I know what I'm going to do in November. I don't know what I'm going to do in November. I was not planning on voting. I'm out of this, man. I don't want to be involved in this. But you look, man, if the progressives, if the populists are all on board and say, you know what, he did a good job, you got to accept it as reality. I'll see you all at 4 p.m. at youtube.com/Timcast. YouTube.com/Timcast. It's my main channel. I'll see you all then.